The red dust of Kepler 442b swirled around Dr. Jinwoo Park as he carefully brushed away centuries of dirt from the strange metal surface. The planet was far from Earth, beyond what most people called the safe zone. But Jinwoo had spent his whole life looking for things that others said did not exist. "Professor Park, you need to see this," called Dr. So-Min Lee from across the dig site. Her voice carried excitement that made Jinwoo drop his tools and hurry over. So-Min stood next to a hole in the ground that had not been there yesterday. The scanning equipment had found something deep below the surface. Something big. Something that did not match anything they knew about this dead planet. "The readings are off the charts," So-Min said, showing Jinwoo her tablet. "Whatever is down there, it is made of materials we have never seen before. And Jinwoo, it is giving off energy." Captain Dong-Hyun Kim walked over to them. His military uniform was covered in dust, but his hand never left his weapon. The captain had been sent to protect the dig team, though from what nobody had told him. "How deep?" Captain Kim asked, looking down into the dark hole. 50 meters, maybe more," Jinwoo replied. "We need to go down there." "Absolutely not," the captain said firmly. "My orders are to keep you safe. Going into an unknown underground structure on an alien planet is not safe." Jinwoo had expected this. Military people always worried about safety first, but some discoveries were worth the risk. "Captain, we came here to find proof that the precursors existed. This could be that proof. We cannot just walk away because it might be dangerous." The precursors were a mystery that had puzzled scientists for decades. They had left traces across the galaxy, strange ruins, impossible technology fragments, and stories told by alien races about gods who came from the stars. But no one had ever found a complete precursor site. So-Min activated her portable lights and lowered them into the hole. The beams revealed smooth walls that seemed to be carved from black stone, but as the light hit the walls, strange symbols began to glow with a soft blue light. "The walls are reacting to our lights," So-Min whispered. "This is definitely precursor technology." Captain Kim spoke into his radio, calling for backup equipment from their ship. If they were going down there, they would do it properly. 2 hours later, the team had set up ropes and safety equipment. Jinwoo went first, followed by So-Min, and then Captain Kim. The shaft went straight down for 40 meters before opening into a vast underground chamber. The chamber was bigger than anything Jinwoo had imagined. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above them. The floor was covered in the same black stone as the walls, but it was perfectly smooth and reflected their lights like a mirror. But what took their breath away was what stood in the center of the chamber. A massive black obelisk rose from the floor, reaching up toward the hidden ceiling. It was covered in the same glowing symbols they had seen in the shaft, but these were moving. The symbols flowed across the surface like water, changing and shifting in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "My God," So-Min breathed. "It is beautiful." Jinwoo approached the obelisk carefully. His instruments were going crazy, showing energy readings that should not be possible. The artifact was not just old, it was actively doing something. "Professor, maybe we should not get too close," Captain Kim warned. But Jinwoo was already reaching toward the surface. "Wait!" So-Min called out. "Let me scan it first," but Jinwoo could not wait. He had dreamed of this moment his whole life. His hand touched the black surface. The world exploded into light and sound. Images flooded Jinwoo's mind. Star maps showing galaxies he had never seen, technical drawings of ships and weapons that looked impossible, and faces. Alien faces that looked kind and wise and sad. The obelisk began to hum, a deep sound that they felt in their bones. The symbols moved faster now, spiraling up the surface in complex patterns. And then, impossible as it seemed, the artifact began to speak, not with words, but directly into their minds. Jinwoo heard it first, then So-Min, then even Captain Kim. "We have waited so long," the voice said. "We hoped you would find us before it was too late." "Who are you?" Jinwoo asked out loud, though he somehow knew the voice would hear his thoughts. "We were the Guardians. You call us precursors. We built this for you, for humans, for this moment." So-Min stepped closer, her scientific mind fighting with what she was experiencing. "Built what for us?" The chamber filled with holographic images. Ships unlike anything humanity had ever built appeared in the air around them. Weapons that bent space itself. Technology that seemed to work by pure thought. "The tools you will need for what is coming," the voice continued. "We could not stop them. But you can, you must." "Stop who?" Captain Kim demanded, his soldier instincts taking over. The holograms changed, showing massive fleets of dark ships. Alien faces that looked cruel and hungry. Planets burning under their attack. The Vectari Empire comes. They have been sleeping. But our signal will wake them. They will want what you have found. They will try to take it. Jinwoo felt cold despite the warm air in the chamber. What signal? The signal this obelisk sends when activated by human touch. It tells the galaxy that you are ready. Ready to inherit what we built. Ready to become what we could not. The images showed more ships, but these were different, sleek and powerful, with humans at their controls. The ships moved like living things, striking with precision that seemed impossible. The Stormbreaker Fleet, the voice said with something that might have been pride, built from our knowledge and your courage. But you must build them quickly. The Vectari will come within one cycle of your sun. 1 year, Somin translated, her voice shaking. How do we build these ships? Jinwoo asked. We do not have this technology. Now you do. The obelisk pulsed and new information flooded their minds. Manufacturing processes, material formulas, power systems that worked on principles human science had never dreamed of. Captain Kim was already speaking into his radio, calling for immediate evacuation. He understood what this meant better than the scientists. Humanity was about to be tested in ways it had never been tested before. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Jinwoo looked back at the obelisk. The symbols had stopped moving and were now glowing with steady light. Why us? He asked. The voice came one last time, filled with something that might have been hope. Because you never give up. Because when faced with the impossible, you find a way. Because you are humanity. The chamber fell silent, but the knowledge remained, burning in their minds like a fire that would change everything. Admiral Hee-Jin Choi stood in the main laboratory of the Earth Defense Command, watching the greatest minds of humanity struggle with knowledge that should not exist. 3 weeks had passed since the discovery on Kepler 442b, and the artifact's data was turning everything they knew about science upside down. The energy requirements alone should be impossible, Dr. Tae-ho Yoon muttered, staring at holographic displays that showed ship designs floating in the air. These weapons would need more power than our entire planet produces. Dr. Somin Lee looked up from her workstation. Dark circles under her eyes showed she had not slept much since returning from the dig. But the math works, Tae-ho. I have checked it 100 times. The precursor technology does not work the way our technology works. Admiral Choi had been chosen to lead the Stormbreaker project because she was the best strategic mind in the Earth Defense Force. But even she felt lost when looking at the alien blueprints. Explain it to me in simple terms, she said. How do these ships work? Dr. Yoon activated a new hologram, showing the internal structure of one of the Stormbreaker vessels. Instead of generating power, they tap into something the precursors called the quantum foam. It is like, imagine if you could plug into the energy that exists between atoms. The power is unlimited. And the weapons? Admiral Choi asked. They do not destroy things in the normal way, So-min answered. They change the rules of physics in small areas. A Stormbreaker cannon can make space itself tear apart. The enemy ship simply stops existing. Admiral Choi felt a chill run down her spine. Humanity was about to inherit weapons that could unmake reality itself. But they had no choice. The long-range sensors had already detected movement in the outer systems. Something big was coming toward Earth. Dr. Jinwoo Park entered the laboratory carrying a tablet full of new translations from the artifact. His hair had turned gray in the past 3 weeks from the stress of processing precursor knowledge. I have good news and bad news, he announced. The good news is that I have figured out how the ship AI systems work. The bad news is that they are not really AI systems. Everyone stopped what they were doing and turned to look at him. What do you mean? Admiral Choi asked. Jinwoo activated his tablet and a new hologram appeared. This one showed a complex pattern of light that seemed to move and think. The precursors did not just leave us technology. They left pieces of themselves. Each ship is designed to carry a precursor consciousness, a digital ghost, if you will. These consciousnesses will help human crews operate the ships. Dr. Yoon stepped closer to examine the pattern. You mean the ships will be controlled by dead aliens? Not controlled, Jinwoo corrected. Guided. The precursor consciousnesses will work with human crews. They understand the technology, but they need human intuition and creativity to use it effectively. Admiral Choi thought about this. Working with alien minds was not something they had trained for. But if it was the only way to save humanity, they would learn. "How long do we have?" she asked. Somin checked her latest sensor readings. "The Vektari fleet is moving faster than we expected. 8 months, maybe less." "And how long to build the Stormbreaker fleet?" "If we start construction immediately and use every shipyard on Earth and Mars, we might be able to build 12 ships in 10 months, Dr. Yoon replied. Admiral Choi did the math in her head. "They would be cutting it very close, then we start today. I want construction teams working around the clock. We will need volunteers for the crews." "About that," Jinwoo said quietly, "the precursor consciousnesses are very specific about who can crew these ships. They can only work with humans who have certain mental patterns. Natural pilots, strategic thinkers, people who can adapt quickly to new situations." Admiral Choi nodded. She had expected this would not be simple. Over the next few days, the construction began. Massive shipyards in Earth orbit started building the Stormbreaker vessels using materials and techniques that had never been tried before. The ships were huge, each one a kilometer long and bristling with weapons that hurt to look at directly. The first ship's hull was completed after 2 months. Admiral Choi stood in the observation deck watching the sleek black vessel take shape. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Admiral," So-min called from her station, "we are ready to install the first precursor consciousness." Admiral Choi walked over to the central control panel where a new device had been built. It looked like a crystal sphere surrounded by circuits that seemed to grow rather than be manufactured. "Are you sure this is safe?" she asked. Jinwoo looked nervous but determined. "The consciousness has been waiting for millions of years to do this. It wants to help us." He activated the device. The crystal sphere began to glow, and suddenly the air in the room felt different, like someone else was present. "Hello," a voice said directly into their minds. It was the same voice they had heard in the chamber, but somehow warmer now. "I am called Keeper of Stars by my people. I will guide your first ship." Admiral Choi found her voice. "What do you need from us?" "A captain who thinks like fire and moves like water. Someone who can make decisions in the space between heartbeats." "Do you have such a person?" Admiral Choi smiled for the first time in weeks. "I know exactly who you need." 3 days later, Captain Yeon Hee-song stood on the bridge of the first Stormbreaker ship. She had been chosen from thousands of candidates because her test scores showed exactly the kind of mind the precursor consciousness could work with. The ship was called the Thunderstrike, and as Yeon Hee touched the control systems, she felt Keeper of Stars' presence merge with her thoughts. It was strange but not unpleasant, like having a wise teacher sitting next to her, ready to help. "The ship responds to thought as much as touch," Keeper of Stars explained. "Think of where you want to go and we will take you there." Yeon Hee thought about moving forward, and the Thunderstrike began to move with impossible smoothness. No vibration, no sense of acceleration, just movement that felt as natural as walking. "This is incredible," she breathed. "This is just the beginning," Keeper of Stars replied. "Wait until you see what we can do in battle." Back in the laboratory, Admiral Choi watched the test flight through the monitors. The Thunderstrike moved like a living thing, responding to its captain's thoughts with perfect precision. 11 more ships to go, she said to herself. Dr. Yoon looked up from his calculations. "Admiral, I have been thinking about the Vektari. Why are they coming? What do they want?" Admiral Choi had been wondering the same thing. According to the precursor data, they are an empire that conquers other species. They probably want the technology we found, but why now? The artifact has been sitting on that planet for millions of years. So-min looked up from her work. Because Jinwoo touched it. The artifact sent out a signal when it detected human DNA. The Vektari have been waiting for someone to find it. "You mean this is a trap?" Admiral Choi asked. "Not a trap," Jinwoo said quietly. "A test. The precursors left this technology for whoever was worthy of it. The Vektari think they are worthy. Now they're coming to take it from us." Admiral Choi looked out at the stars through the laboratory windows. Somewhere out there, an alien fleet was heading toward Earth with the intention of destroying humanity and taking their technology. "Then we will show them they are wrong," she said firmly. "We will show them what humans can do when we refuse to give up." The construction continued. More ships took shape. More consciousnesses were awakened. More captains learned to merge their minds with ancient alien wisdom. Humanity was preparing for a war unlike anything it had ever fought. And deep in her heart, Admiral Choi believed they could win. Master Engineer Kyung-Soo Han stood on the observation platform watching 12 massive shapes take form in the shipyards around Earth. 6 months had passed since construction began, and the Stormbreaker Fleet was almost complete. Each ship was a work of art and engineering that should not have been possible. "The hull plating on Ship 7 is complete," his assistant reported. "We can begin installing the quantum drive systems tomorrow." Kyung-Soo nodded, but his eyes were focused on Ship 1, the Thunderstrike. Captain Yeon Hee-song was running test flights with her precursor partner, Keeper of Stars. The ship moved through space like a dancer, bending and flowing in ways that made his engineer's mind struggle to understand how it worked. "Sir," another technician called out, "Captain Song is requesting permission to test the phase drive." Kyung-Soo felt his stomach tighten. The phase drive was the most dangerous and amazing technology the precursors had given them. It allowed the ships to slip between dimensions, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. But they had never tested it with a human crew before. "Permission granted," he said, "but keep all other ships at least 10,000 kilometers away." On the bridge of the Thunderstrike, Captain Song felt Keeper of Stars' excitement mixing with her own nervousness. The phase drive was not just advanced technology. It was technology that worked by changing the laws of physics around the ship. "Are you ready, Captain?" Keeper of Stars asked in her mind. "As ready as anyone can be for something impossible," Song replied. She placed her hands on the control interface and thought about stepping sideways through reality. The ship responded immediately. The stars disappeared. For a moment that felt like forever, the Thunderstrike existed nowhere and everywhere at the same time. Song could see Earth and Mars and the shipyards, but they looked flat and distant, like pictures painted on glass. Colors that had no names flowed around the ship. Then they were back in normal space, but 10,000 kilometers from where they had started. "Phase jump successful," Song reported, trying to keep the amazement out of her voice. "No damage to ship or crew. The drive works exactly as designed." Kyung-Soo let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. They had just proven that humanity could use technology that bent reality itself. "Bring her home, Captain," he said. "We have a fleet to finish." Over the next 3 months, the other ships were completed one by one. Each ship received its own precursor consciousness and human captain. Captain Minho Park took command of the second ship, the Lightning Strike. His tactical mind impressed his precursor partner, a consciousness called Stormwalker. Captain Eun-ji Kang commanded the third ship, the Starbreaker. Her fearless nature made her perfect for working with a precursor consciousness named Void Singer, who specialized in weapons systems. Each ship was unique, designed for different roles in battle. Some were fast scouts that could phase in and out of reality to gather information. Others were heavy assault ships with weapons that could crack planets. A few were support vessels that could repair other ships or provide cover with defensive systems, but all of them shared one thing: they moved and fought in ways that no human ship had ever been able to match. Admiral Choi stood in the command center watching the final tests. The 12 ships of the Stormbreaker Fleet flew in formation, their black hulls reflecting the light of Earth's sun. They were beautiful and deadly, like sharks made of starlight. "Long-range sensors are picking up movement in the outer system," Dr. So Min Lee reported from her station. "The Vectari fleet is 2 weeks out." Admiral Choi nodded. They had finished the fleet just in time. "What are we looking at?" she asked. So Min's face was pale as she read the sensor data. 1,047 ships, including several that are very large. The main screen showed blurry images of the approaching fleet. Even at this distance, it was clear that the Vectari ships were massive and heavily armed. The largest ships looked like floating cities bristling with weapons. "Their flagship is 3 kilometers long," So Min continued. "Energy readings suggest it could destroy a moon." Admiral Choi felt fear try to creep into her heart, but she pushed it away. Fear was a luxury they could not afford. "Send a message to all Stormbreaker captains," she ordered. "Final briefing in 1 hour." The captains gathered in the command center aboard Admiral Choi's flagship. They were humanity's best pilots and tacticians, but they all looked nervous as they studied the images of the approaching Vectari fleet. "They outnumber us almost 100 to 1, Captain Song observed. "Yes," Admiral Choi agreed, "but they have never fought ships like ours before." She activated a holographic display showing the Stormbreaker fleet's capabilities. "Our ships can phase between dimensions. We can appear behind their lines, strike, and disappear before they can respond. Our weapons can tear holes in space itself, and we have something they do not have. What is that? Captain Park asked. We have the precursor consciousnesses guiding us. They have fought the Vektari before, millions of years ago. They know their weaknesses. Keeper of Stars spoke through the ship's communication system, his voice reaching all the captains at once. The Vektari are powerful, but predictable. They rely on overwhelming force and brutal tactics. They do not adapt well to new strategies. This will be their weakness. Stormwalker's voice joined in. They also underestimate other species. They will expect you to run or surrender. They will not be prepared for humans who fight back. Admiral Choi looked at each captain in turn. The plan is simple. We let them enter the inner system. When they are committed to their attack, we phase in from multiple directions and hit their command ships. If we can break their leadership, their fleet will fall apart. Captain Kang raised her hand. What if they do not fall apart? What if they keep fighting? Then we keep fighting too, Admiral Choi replied. Because that is what humans do. We do not give up. 2 days later, the Vektari fleet reached the edge of the solar system. Their ships were even more impressive up close. Massive dark vessels covered in armor and weapons. They moved in perfect formation, like a swarm of metal locusts heading toward Earth. The flagship was truly enormous, a floating fortress that could probably defeat Earth's entire old fleet by itself. Weapon ports covered its hull like the eyes of a spider. Incoming transmission, So-Min reported. Admiral Choi nodded. Put it on screen. The main display showed an alien face that looked like a cross between a lizard and a shark. Cruel eyes stared out from a scarred face, and when the creature spoke, its voice was full of contempt. I am War Chieftain Krexthor of the Vektari Empire. You will surrender the precursor technology immediately. Your ships will be destroyed and your planet will be conquered. You have 1 hour to comply. Admiral Choi stood up and faced the screen. This is Admiral Hee-Jin Choi of the Earth Defense Force. We reject your demands. If you want our technology, you will have to take it. Krexthor's face twisted into what might have been a smile. So be it. Your species will serve as an example to others who think they can defy the Empire. The transmission ended. Admiral Choi turned to her communications officer. Send the signal to all Stormbreaker ships. Operation Thunderclap is now active. Around the solar system, 12 ships that should not have existed prepared to fight an enemy that had conquered 1,000 worlds. The Stormbreaker Fleet was about to show the galaxy what humanity could do when pushed to the edge. In her mind, Captain Song felt Keeper of Stars' presence grow stronger. Are you ready, my friend? The ancient consciousness asked. Let us find out, Song replied, and thought the Thunderstrike into its first combat phase jump. The real war was about to begin. War Chieftain Krexthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the World Burner, watching the small blue planet grow larger on his screens. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen a species so foolish as to reject surrender when facing the full might of the Vektari Empire. Sir, his weapons officer reported, we are detecting only 12 enemy ships. They appear to be holding position near the 4th planet. Krexthor laughed, a sound like grinding metal. 12 ships against over 1,000? These humans are either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Shall we destroy them now? His tactical officer asked. No, Krexthor replied. Let them come to us. I want to see what technology they think can save them before I crush it. But deep in space, the 12 ships of the Stormbreaker Fleet were not waiting to be destroyed. They were preparing to change everything the galaxy knew about warfare. Captain Yeon Hee-song felt the Thunderstrike respond to her thoughts as she guided the ship into position. Around her, the bridge crew worked with perfect coordination, their minds linked to the ship's systems through precursor technology that made thinking and acting the same thing. All ships report ready, her communications officer announced. Keeper of Stars, are you ready? Song asked her precursor partner. I have been ready for this moment for 3 million years, came the reply in her mind. The Vektari destroyed my people's bodies, but they could not destroy our desire for justice. Song nodded and opened a channel to the other Stormbreaker ships. All captains, this is Song, remember the plan. Hit fast, hit hard, and do not let them adapt to our tactics. Captain Minho Park's voice came back from the lightning strike, ready to show them what humans can do. Captain Yoonji Kang added from the Starbreaker, let us light up the sky. Song took a deep breath and gave the order that would change galactic history. All ships phase jumped to attack positions. Execute Operation Thunderclap. Reality bent around the Stormbreaker Fleet. One moment, the 12 ships were holding position near Mars. The next moment, they appeared scattered throughout the Vectari formation, like deadly ghosts materializing from nowhere. The thunderstrike phased in directly behind the world burner, so close that Song could see individual weapon ports on the massive ship's hull. Without hesitation, she fired. The Stormbreaker's main cannon did not shoot energy or projectiles. Instead, it tore a hole in the fabric of space itself. The beam struck the world burner's rear shields and simply erased them from existence. Impossible, Crexthor roared as his ship shuddered under the impact. Where did they come from? All around the Vectari formation, similar scenes were playing out. Captain Park's lightning strike appeared in the middle of a squadron of cruisers and opened fire, with weapons that turned matter into energy, and energy into nothing. 3 Vectari ships disappeared in flashes of light that had no name. Captain Kang's Starbreaker phased in above a massive battleship and fired downward with cannons that made gravity itself into a weapon. The Vectari ship was crushed by its own mass as space-time folded around it. The other Stormbreaker ship struck with equal precision and devastating effect. Ships that had conquered 1,000 worlds found themselves facing technology they could not understand or counter. Return fire, Crexthor commanded. Destroy them all. The Vectari fleet responded with overwhelming firepower. Thousands of weapons turned toward the Stormbreaker ships, filling space with enough energy to melt planets. But the Stormbreaker fleet was no longer where the weapons were aimed. The 12 ships phased out of normal space just as the enemy fire reached them. The Vectari weapons struck nothing but empty space and each other. Several Vectari ships were destroyed by their own fleet's friendly fire. Where are they? Crexthor demanded. His question was answered when the Stormbreaker fleet phased back in, but in completely different positions. They had used the phase drive to move through dimensions where distance and time worked differently, allowing them to appear anywhere they wanted almost instantly. Song found herself next to a Vectari carrier that was launching fighter squadrons. She smiled grimly and fired the Thunderstrike's secondary weapons, beams that froze time in small areas. The Vectari fighters suddenly found themselves moving so slowly that they were sitting targets. This is impossible, Crexthor muttered as he watched his powerful fleet being torn apart by 12 ships that fought like demons from another dimension. But Stormwalker, the precursor consciousness guiding Captain Park, spoke through the lightning strike's communication system so that all the Vectari could hear. You call this impossible because you have never faced an enemy that refuses to accept defeat. The humans do not know how to surrender. That is why they will inherit what we could not protect. The battle continued for 2 hours, but it was never really in doubt. The Stormbreaker ships moved through space and time like predators hunting prey. They appeared, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before the enemy could respond effectively. The Vectari fleet, for all its size and power, was designed to fight conventional battles against conventional enemies. They had no answer for ships that could phase between dimensions or weapons that rewrote the laws of physics. By the end of the first engagement, the Vectari had lost over 300 ships while the Stormbreaker fleet remained untouched. Crexthor stared at his tactical displays in disbelief. His mighty fleet was being humiliated by 12 ships crewed by a species he had never heard of before today. Sir, his communications officer said nervously, we are receiving surrender requests from 47 of our ships. They are asking permission to retreat. No retreat, Crexthor roared. We are the Vectari Empire. We do not run from primitive species. But even as he spoke, more ships were breaking formation and trying to escape. The Stormbreaker fleet let them go, focusing instead on the ships that continued to fight. Song felt Keeper of Stars' satisfaction in her mind. They are learning fear, the ancient consciousness observed. Fear of an enemy they cannot predict or counter. Is this how you fought them before? Song asked. No, Keeper of Stars replied sadly. Before we tried to match their strength with strength. We built bigger ships and more powerful weapons, but we forgot that the greatest weapon is not size or power. It is the refusal to give up when everything seems lost. The battle reached its climax when Song led the Thunderstrike in a direct assault on the world burner itself. The massive flagship turned all its weapons toward her ship, filling space with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Song did not try to dodge or flee. Instead, she phased the Thunderstrike directly through the enemy fire, appearing inside the world burner's shield envelope where its own weapons could not target her. "This is for every species you have conquered," she said quietly, and fired at point-blank range. The Thunderstrike's main cannon tore a hole clean through the world burner from one side to the other. The massive ship, the pride of the Vektari fleet, began to break apart. Krexthor felt his ship dying around him and finally understood what he was facing. These humans did not fight like any species he had ever encountered. They fought with a combination of advanced technology and pure determination that made them nearly unstoppable. "Send a message to the Empire," he ordered his communications officer with his last breath. Tell them we have found something new in this galaxy. Something dangerous," the world burner exploded, taking Krexthor and his pride with it. The surviving Vektari ships, seeing their flagship destroyed and their war chieftain dead, finally broke and ran. Nearly 600 ships fled toward the outer system, leaving their dead behind. Admiral Choi watched from her command ship as the Stormbreaker Fleet regrouped near Earth. They had won their first battle, but she knew this was just the beginning. "Damage report," she requested. "All Stormbreaker ships report minimal damage," came the reply. "The Thunderstrike has some minor hull scoring, but nothing serious." Admiral Choi allowed herself a moment of pride. Humanity had just defeated one of the most powerful fleets in the galaxy using 12 ships and the refusal to give up. "But Captain," Song's voice came over the communication system with a warning that chilled her. "Admiral, Keeper of Stars is telling me something important. The Vektari who escaped will report back to their empire. They will return with everything they have." "How long do we have?" Admiral Choi asked. 6 months, maybe less. "And when they come back, they will bring the entire Vektari war machine. Thousands of ships, including their ultimate weapon." Admiral Choi looked out at the stars where the enemy fleet had fled. Humanity had won this battle, but the real war was just beginning. They would need to be ready for whatever came next. 5 months after the first battle, long-range sensors detected what everyone had been dreading. The Vektari were returning, and they were not taking any chances this time. Admiral Hyojin Choi stood in the command center studying the sensor readings with growing alarm. The enemy fleet was massive beyond anything they had imagined possible. "Final count is 12,700 ships," Dr. So-Min Lee reported, her voice barely steady, "including alliance vessels from 6 different conquered species." "And the World Ender?" Admiral Choi asked, though she already knew the answer. "Confirmed. The moon-sized battle station is at the center of their formation. Our computers estimate it has enough firepower to crack planets." Admiral Choi closed her eyes for a moment. Even with all their victories, humanity was about to face impossible odds. The Stormbreaker fleet had proven deadly against conventional enemies, but this was something beyond conventional warfare. Dr. Tae-ho Yoon looked up from his research station. "Admiral, I think I have found something in the precursor data. Something we missed before. What is it?" she asked. The artifact on Kepler 442b contained more than just ship designs and weapon blueprints. "There are records of something called the Ascension Protocol." Admiral Choi walked over to his station. "Explain." "The precursors faced the same situation we are facing now. Overwhelming enemy numbers, impossible odds. So they developed a way to temporarily expand human consciousness to their level." So-Min looked up from her sensors. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means," Dr. Yoon said quietly, "that a human mind can be merged completely with a precursor consciousness. The human would gain all their knowledge and understanding of space and time, but what?" Admiral Choi asked. "But they might not be human anymore when it is over." Admiral Choi thought about this. The choice was clear: remain human and lose everything, or sacrifice their humanity to save their species. "Can it be reversed?" she asked. "The data is unclear. Some precursors who underwent the process were able to return to normal. Others were changed forever." Admiral Choi opened a communication channel to all Stormbreaker ships. "All captains, emergency meeting in 1 hour. We need to discuss our options." The 12 captains gathered via hologram in the command center. Each one looked tired from months of preparation and training, but their determination had not wavered. Captain Yan Hee-song spoke first. "The Ascension Protocol. Keeper of Stars has been telling me about it. He says it is our only chance against the World Ender." "What exactly would happen to us?" Captain Minho Park asked. Stormwalker's voice came through the Lightning Strike's communication system. Your minds would expand to encompass space and time as we understand them. You would be able to control your ships through pure thought, coordinate attacks across multiple dimensions, and understand your enemy's actions before they make them. Captain Yunji Kang leaned forward. At what cost? Void Singer, her precursor partner, answered honestly. You might lose what makes you human. The way you think, the way you feel, the way you see the universe. All of it could change forever. The captains were quiet for a long moment. They were being asked to sacrifice not just their lives, but their very souls for the chance to save humanity. I will do it, Captain Song said finally. If it gives us a chance to win, I will do it. One by one, the other captains agreed. They knew the risks, but they also knew what would happen to Earth if they failed. Admiral Choi felt proud and heartbroken at the same time. These brave people were willing to give up everything to save their species. Very well, she said. Dr. Yoon, prepare the ascension protocol. We begin immediately. The process took place aboard each Stormbreaker ship simultaneously. The captains lay in specially constructed chambers while precursor technology merged their minds with their alien partners. Captain Song felt Keeper of Stars' consciousness flowing into hers like water filling an empty cup. But instead of being overwhelmed, she found her own thoughts expanding to match his vast understanding. Suddenly she could see space and time as a single fabric that could be folded, twisted, and torn. She understood how the phase drives worked not just mechanically, but as expressions of will upon reality itself. And she could feel the other captains undergoing the same transformation. Their minds were linking together into a network of consciousness that spanned the solar system. Are you still you? Admiral Choi asked when the process was complete. Song opened her eyes, and for a moment, Admiral Choi was looking into the gaze of something that was both human and far more than human. I am Song, but I am also Keeper of Stars, she replied in a voice that harmonized with itself. I remember being afraid of spiders as a child, and I remember watching stars being born billions of years ago. I am what I was and what I need to be. The other captains reported similar experiences. They retained their human memories and personalities, but now possessed understanding that no human mind should have been able to contain. 3 days later, the Vectari Coalition fleet entered the solar system. Their formation stretched across millions of kilometers, a cloud of dark ships surrounding the massive sphere of the world ender. This time, there was no communication. No demands for surrender. The Vectari intended to destroy everything and take the precursor technology from the wreckage. All Stormbreaker ships, prepare for final battle, Admiral Choi commanded. But the 12 ships were already moving before she finished speaking. The ascended captains no longer needed verbal orders. They thought and acted as one mind distributed across 12 bodies. The Stormbreaker fleet phased into attack formation around the enemy fleet. But this time they did not appear randomly. They materialized in perfect coordination, each ship positioned to support the others in ways that made their formation into a single weapon. The World Ender fired first, its main cannon unleashing enough energy to melt continents, but the beam struck empty space. The Stormbreaker ships had phased out of normal time, moving through dimensions where cause and effect worked differently. They reappeared behind the massive battle station and fired in perfect unison. 12 beams of twisted space-time struck the World Ender's shields and began tearing them apart layer by layer. The Coalition fleet responded with everything they had. Thousands of ships opened fire, creating a storm of energy that should have destroyed anything in its path. But the Stormbreaker fleet was no longer bound by normal physics. They moved through the attacking fire like it was not there, phasing between dimensions to avoid damage while striking back with precision that seemed impossible. Captain Song felt her consciousness stretched across multiple realities at once. She was piloting the Thunderstrike, but she was also coordinating with Captain Park's flanking maneuver, supporting Captain Kang's assault on the enemy carriers, and calculating the orbital mechanics needed to use Jupiter's gravity to accelerate their attacks. The battle became a dance of impossible beauty and terrible destruction. The Stormbreaker ships moved like thoughts given form, appearing and disappearing throughout the enemy formation, striking with weapons that rewrote reality itself. But the World Ender was too massive and too well protected to be destroyed easily. Its shields regenerated almost as fast as the Stormbreaker ships could damage them. We need to get inside, Song realized, speaking to all the captains through their linked consciousness. The shields cannot protect it from within. That is suicide, Captain Park replied. The internal defenses will tear us apart. Not if we phase through them, Song said. Trust me. The 12 ships began moving in formation toward the world ender. As they approached, the massive battle station's defensive systems activated. Energy beams and missile swarms filled the space around them. But the Stormbreaker Fleet phased through the attacks as if they were made of light and shadow. They passed through the world ender's shields and hull, appearing in the vast internal spaces of the moon-sized ship. Inside the world ender, they found cities worth of weapons, power cores the size of mountains, and millions of Vectari warriors preparing for the invasion of Earth. Do it, Song commanded. All 12 ships fired their main weapons simultaneously, not at the ship's structure, but at the quantum foundations that held its matter together. The world ender began to come apart at the molecular level. Its massive bulk, held together by artificial gravity and force fields, started collapsing as the bonds between its atoms were severed. The Stormbreaker Fleet phased out just as the moon-sized battle station exploded with the force of a small star. The explosion sent shockwaves through the coalition fleet. Hundreds of ships were destroyed by debris and radiation. The survivors, seeing their ultimate weapon destroyed, began to panic. Some ships tried to surrender. Others attempted to flee. Most simply stopped fighting and drifted in space. Their crews too shocked to respond. But Captain Song was no longer entirely human, and she felt no mercy for an enemy that had come to destroy her species. Finish them, she commanded. And the Stormbreaker Fleet began hunting down the survivors with the methodical precision of predators. The battle lasted 6 more hours. When it was over, the coalition fleet had been completely destroyed. 12,000 ships reduced to wreckage and radiation. But the victory came at a terrible cost. Admiral Choi tried to contact the Stormbreaker ships and found that the captains could barely remember how to speak with normal human.